Hi, I'm Karen Large, and this is Flute in a Few. Today's topic is performance analysis. If you haven't already, get the download that comes with this video. It has a really handy handout as well as a blank score of the Gobert Madrigal, which we'll be talking about in this video. So one of my favorite quotes is from Arthur Weisberg in The Art of Wind Playing, and he says, "A composer cannot put down on paper more than about 30% of what he actually has in his mind." Isn't that true? So often if you play what's on the page, it doesn't necessarily translate to a very expressive or musical performance. We have to add so much more to what's on the score. So one of my favorite ways to do that is to listen to masters play these standard flute works. Why do we even listen to recordings? I think one reason is we can imitate the tone and technique and color and expression of famous flutists. We can understand how different flutists sound and play so that we can kind of take what we like from here and take what we like from here. We can also get a picture of how a work is traditionally performed. So there might be a place where everybody pulls back even though there's no retard written down. That's very helpful to learn in recordings. And finally, if you record yourself, it's really great to hear if what you intend to do actually comes across. But I think the problem with listening to recordings is that we usually don't have a way to document every nuance of the performance. And it makes it really difficult to integrate what we heard in a recording to our own performance. I know a lot of my students, whenever I say, okay, listen to so-and-so perform your piece, they'll put it on their phone to listen at the gym, or they'll put it on in the car. Some of them, if they're very studious, might open their score and follow along. I don't think that's a very thorough approach. And so the approach I'm going to teach you today hopefully is mind-blowing. Hopefully it'll change the way you listen to recordings forever. So the method that I'm going to describe, I call it performance analysis. So what you're going to do is you're going to notate different layers of musical expression in the score. It's kind of cool because you can create a performance analysis for this flutist's version, and then this flutist's version of the piece, and then this flutist's version. So you can have a visual representation of what that flutist did in their performance, and then again, you can pick and choose. Supplies that you need for a performance analysis. You need a clean photocopy of the score, and you need it to be a legal copy, meaning you've already purchased the score and you simply make a clean copy of the score. Frankly, it's a really good idea to make a clean scan of your score before you ever start writing in it, just so that if you ever need a clean copy, you have one. You need colored pens or pencils, which is super fun. You need headphones and a phone or computer with your favorite recording on it. If your scores are on an iPad, you can simply get a clean PDF of the score for this project and then use an editing program like Score. So the first step of creating a performance analysis is at the top of the page, write the performer's name. Okay, so I'm going to follow along with the Gobert Madrigal, and I chose Fenwick Smith's recording of the Madrigal. So I wrote his name at the top along with his pianist name, and I included the YouTube link to his performance if you want to follow along with that specifically. Second step is to determine which layers of expression you would like to listen for. I have 3 must-haves: tempo and rubato, breathing, and dynamics. But there are a ton of other layers that you can listen for as well, including articulation and note lengths, or vibrato, character, color. Depending on what you need to listen for, that's the different layers that you'll choose. But in every performance analysis I do, I always listen for tempo and rubato, breathing, and dynamics. Step 3. You're going to listen carefully to the recording for only one layer at a time. And believe it or not, it might take you several listens to complete even one layer. Then you'll use one color of pencil or pen for each layer. And you'll find that you're going to end up creating your own personal shorthand or symbols through this process to help indicate what you hear. So I have my own shorthand, and you can see it in the handout here. I have chosen to write in tempo and rubato using blue. If a piece is generally at a single tempo, then I wouldn't necessarily include tempo markings through the whole piece. But I noticed that in Mr. Smith's recording, he changed the tempo quite a bit, so that's why I included tempo markings. An arrow pointing to the right means that I heard a bit of accelerando, and an arrow pointing to the left means that he pulled back time, or in this case, his pianist pulled back time. And then if you see a tenuto, it just means that maybe one note was held, but it wasn't necessarily a retard in that moment. As you can see, I listened to the entire piece. It did take me several times to write this out, especially to tap on my metronome what speed they were going. That is my tempo and rubato layer. Then the following steps are just to repeat that for each layer using a different color of pen. So if we continue on, I chose to do breathing next, and I used green. Just to explain my shorthand, you don't have to do it the same way as me. For breathing, I like to use a B because I feel like commas are somewhat easy to miss. And what's cool about the B is that you can also write something inside of it. My shorthand is T for time breath, meaning there's quite a bit of time to take the breath, or that the flutist takes a lot of air there. M means kind of moderate or middle breath, and then Q means a quick breath. Anyway, I did that throughout the whole piece, and there's one kind of point that is worth noting. Right here, leading up to the recap, there isn't a breath taken for a very, very long time. There's something strange that happens here. It sounds like a little bit of movie magic, if you know what I mean, a little bit of editing right here. So I think that a breath was taken here and then it was edited out, or that this section was recorded and then they stopped and then they started the new section and then spliced them together, and then it spliced out the breath. So in situations like that where you can't hear the breathing in a recording, I recommend listening to live versions. Like if you have a really trouble spot and all of the recordings have spliced it, then listen to a live performance and you'll find some options for breathing. All right, and then finally, my third layer, which to me is the most exciting, is the dynamics layer, because isn't it funny how sometimes you'll play what's on the page, you'll be really true to the dynamics, and it's not like the recordings you hear. So I wrote in every nuance. The pianist can't do a crescendo through that high D, right? I'm not sure what Gobert was thinking right there. Maybe it was an editor. What the pianist did is they did another accent, just like they did in the first one. So I notated that. And then I notated how they crescendoed into the B flat and then back down. And then I kind of adjusted dynamics if they weren't exactly what was on the page. I completely crossed them out whenever it was really different. And then, of course, I added a bunch of dynamics in. And I think that the times where you really have to cross out the dynamic completely, that's worth looking at and experimenting with your own flute. It's kind of a dialogue in this piece between two characters. I would probably write down also like what the different characters were or what the different colors were that the flutist chose, but I felt like 3 layers was enough to show you what this was all about. Once you're all done with your analysis, you might want to go back to the top of your analysis, maybe write a few words about your overall impressions of this performance. And if you were to do this a few times, then you would be able to compare it to other flute players. I hope you've enjoyed this video on performance analysis. Please submit suggestions to the topic form on Flute in a Few and explore around, and contact me if you have any questions. I'm delighted that you spent some time with me today. Bye.